Hello everyone, my name is Hermit and I'm going to tell you all about the basics of bones and cartilage. And what will I cover during this presentation? I will cover what are bones and cartilage made of, where in the body do you find bones and cartilage, what different types are there of these, and what are the functions. And I will be trying to keep this basic so even new beginners can get some knowledge from it, and also that students can use this to refresh their memory or to learn anatomy and physiology in the beginning. So let's start with the skeleton. So the skeleton is all of our bones put together with the cartilage, and I will talk about bones and cartilage and not joints this time specifically. And what are the functions of the skeleton? The skeleton does several different things. It protects us, protects our inner bodies. You can see here in the rib cage contains our heart and lungs inside. So any damage from outside any objects can be stopped by bone. Also, our skull functions as this little helmet or capsule to protect our brain, which is maybe the most important organ. Now, attachment for muscles is also a very important part of what the skeleton does. The skeleton has several different points where muscles can connect, and if we didn't have the skeleton, muscles would just pull like lumps of tissue together. When you have the skeleton, the pulling force of the muscle can be used in a constructive way to move our limbs and make us do useful things. The skeleton supports the position of our body and organs. This means that it keeps the organs where they're supposed to be, and they also helps keep us upright so we are standing. Our bones are very important in keeping our posture the way we have it. The skeleton also helps us store calcium and phosphate, which is inside of the bone and is used elsewhere in the body for things such as nerve signal transduction. Phosphate is a part of many things, like the phospholipid layer of the outside of all of our cells. Also, phosphate is found in DNA, in RNA, in ATP, and the bones provide a valuable storage for phosphate. The skeleton also contains hematopoietic cells. They make blood. That means that inside of our bone marrow, inside of the bone, which I will talk about later, contains the cells that create all of the different cells inside our blood. Red blood cells, white blood cells, and thrombocytes, which are also called platelets. Now, the skeleton can be divided anatomically into two parts. You have the axial skeleton, which is the axis, so that means the skull and the vertebral column, together with the ribs and the sternum, the breastbone. Also, it follows the vertebral column all the way down, including the sacrum and also the coccyx, which is the tailbone. For animals, the vertebra would continue down as a tail. For humans, we just have the tailbone, which is kind of left over from our evolutionary past. And also the other skeleton is the appendicular skeleton. And those are all of the other bones. So the shoulder blades, clavicle, and the upper arm, like the arms, the legs, and also the pelvis. It's the appendicular skeleton. Now, the skeleton is consisting of bone and cartilage, and this is the subject of this presentation. Cartilage. Cartilage consists of matrix, not like the movie, but it is a substance in between the cells. So it's extracellular matrix, and you have the cells. So in the extracellular matrix, you have what's called ground substance, which is just different molecules that are there. And also you have collagen fibers and elastic fibers. You have these extracellular fibers. So you can think of this like what keeps the structure of the cartilage, and you can think of the elastic fibers as these ropes that are going through the mesh here, and the ground substance you could say is like sand in between all of the ropes. So the sand makes it very strong against when something is like pressing on it, because you can't press sand together so much. And the ropes help with preventing the whole thing from being pulled apart. And you have two different types of rope. You have collagen rope, and you have elastic rope. So collagen rope is more like just very solid rope that can keep things together, and you have elastic fibers which are more elastic and can be stretched and go back together again. So how much you have of collagen or elastic fiber depends on the type of cartilage, and I will speak a little bit about the different types of cartilage. You also have some cells. You have what's called chondrocytes and chondroblasts. Now, don't be scared of these names. It's you can break them down fairly easily. So, chondro is the prefix for everything that has to do with cartilage. So you will see here you have chondrocytes, chondroblasts, and the outer layer is the perichondrium. So peri is like around, and chondrium is the cartilage, around the cartilage. So cyte is for cell, and blasts is for like maker. So the chondrocyte is like the cells of the cartilage. They are inside of the main part of the cartilage. We can see them here, these little dots here. They maintain the extracellular matrix and uphold the integrity of the inside of the cartilage. But the chondroblasts, on the other hand, are on the outside in the perichondrium, and they make the new cartilage and get enveloped in the cartilage as it expands and become chondrocytes. But I'm not going to go so heavily into this. This is talking about this is called histology, the study of tissues, and we can make a separate video on this if it's of interest. The outer layer, the perichondrium, is the only part with the blood supply. So cartilage has a very poor blood supply. It is only supplied by blood, which brings with it nutrients and oxygen on the very outer part of it, and therefore it needs to like seep in through diffusion. It's like you take a piece of paper and dip it in water. You will see that the water diffuses up the paper. It's the same way the oxygen needs to go into the cartilage. Why do we have cartilage? What is the function of cartilage? Cartilage helps us support the soft tissue, so the organs, and it provides a smooth surface between bones and joints, which I will show in a picture soon. Cartilage enables development and growth of long bones. This is because cartilage is found inside of the growth plates of long bones, such as uh, in our arms and in our legs, and these are present during childhood and when we are growing up in adolescence, and they form the lengthening of the long bones and what makes us grow taller. There are different kinds of dwarfism where you'd grow less in your arms and your legs because of the premature closing of these growth plates. Usually they close when we reach adulthood and we stop growing anymore. So let's talk about the different types of cartilage. First, we have hyaline cartilage. This is the most common type of cartilage that we have in the body. It has a medium amount of collagen, the fiber, and it covers the articular surfaces of bones. So we see here on the picture that you have a joint here. We could say this is the knee joint, though it isn't, but it's just a joint. And you have two bones that meet. But the thing is, if you have two bones that just meet and grind against each other when you have the bending, then you will have a lot of friction and inflammation and pain. Therefore, there is this cushion of cartilage on both sides. And this cartilage is there just to smooth the motion of this joint. And there are several diseases like osteoarthritis, where you have through wear and tear, then you just you lose and you make this layer of cartilage thinner and you lose some parts of it, and you have some starting of some rubbing and therefore lots of pain. This is very, very common among older people, especially that have a lot of activity during and have very active jobs with repetitive motion. Also, and this is different from rheumatoid arthritis, where you have more of an inflammation that's happening, and that is what is damaging the cartilage and the joint. But we'll talk more about that under joints. Next is elastic cartilage. So elastic cartilage is what we find in our ears, in our outer ears. And this will give you a good idea of what is cartilage. Well, it's what our air is made of. So you can try to twist it and turn it. It has very many elastic fibers, that's why it bounces back to where it was. And not so many collagen fibers, because it doesn't need to bear any heavy load or stand up to so much pressure as, say, if you are inside of a joint. Yeah, let's talk about fibrocartilage. That's the most fibrous cartilage, of course, from the name, and it contains lots of collagen fibers. So it's not so elastic, but it's very strong and resistant. And this is because it's placed in the intervertebral discs. Inter means between, like international is between countries, and vertebra are the bones that go all the way up and down our spine. So you can see here, between all of these vertebra is a little disc that help the bones turn and bend without actually rubbing into each other and causing damage and inflammation and pain. Therefore we have these discs here. And as you might imagine, there's quite a bit of weight and pressure on these discs. That's why the cartilage is especially tough and fibrous. Now let's talk about bone. This is not a human bone. This is a extinct elephant's bone, but it's pretty big. Bone is the main part of our skeleton. It supports the body. It protects vital organs. It stores phosphate and calcium. It works as levers for our muscles. Because the muscles can attach to the bone and then move the entire bone. It contains hematopoietic stem cells. That means the cells that make blood. Let's talk about what does bone contain. Well, bone contains, just like cartilage, is very similar. It contains extracellular matrix, contains fibers, and it contains cell, and also an outer layer. But it is slightly different in many ways. The bone's matrix has the collagen fibers, but this is another type of collagen fiber, and also it contains a lot of mineral. The mineral is mainly hydroxyapatite, and it consists of calcium and phosphates mainly. And this is where this theory of the sand and the ropes is pretty good to think of. It's why do we have the minerals? It's because it's like the sand. Like, you can push it together and it withstands that pressure very well. And why do we have the collagen fibers? Well, it's because we need these ropes so that the sand can't just be broken. If you've seen like a sandstone, for example, it breaks very easily. So we have about 70% of the inorganic minerals in our matrix and like 30% of collagen in our bones. And if you remove all of the minerals from the bone, then a bone will be like a dog's chewing toy. It will be very bendy and easy to it won't break very easily, but it'll bend all over, and we can't have that if we want to stand up and have a solid structure in our body. Bone also contains cells. Osteocytes maintain the matrix in the bone, and osteoblasts deposit new bone on top of the bone, while osteoclasts take away bone and reabsorb the material into the blood. So the blasts are constantly making more, the clasts are constantly breaking it down. And well, this is fairly easy to remember if you take it together with what was the chondrocytes and the chondroblasts. Here we have osteo, because os is Latin for bone. So osteo is what we say before everything that has to do with bone. Osteocyte, bone cell. So the bone cell is maintaining the bone as it is. Osteoblasts, it's like blasting out bone. It's making more bone. And the osteoclasts, well, the clast is almost the same as blast, but not quite the same, so it's just like eating the bone up again. And the work of the osteoblasts and the osteoclasts go on all the time, and is what's regulating how much bone is being laid down and how much bone goes up back again to the blood. And the whole physiology of this can be discussed in another video. So we have an outer layer, the periosteum, just like we have the perichondrium. Now, the periosteum supplies the bone with blood on the outside to the outer bone, while the inner bone has an artery that goes into it. And I will explain more about how bone is made up. Um, so, periosteum supplies the outer bone with blood and also contains sensory nerve fibers. So, it is in the periosteum where you feel pain. You don't feel pain on the inside of bone, it's the membrane that surrounds the entire bone. It's a fibrous membrane. And you see the types of bone. We can divide up bone by the type of tissue, like the type of bone. And then we have a compact bone, also called cortical bone, which is like this bone that I'm pointing to here, where you have very tight space. There is not much room other than the matrix and the cells. And when we see a cross-section, we see there are these canals that contain blood vessels and nerves, which are the Haversian canal that go along the bone, and the Volkmann's canal, which goes perpendicular to the Haversian canals. And these supply the osteocytes with blood so that they have nutrients and oxygen to continue to maintain the bone. The bone inside of the compact bone is put in like a honeycomb structure and has a very stable form. And if you go more on the inside of bone, you will often find more spongy bone. Spongy bone is also called trabecular bone because these little spikes that are going everywhere are called trabecules, and also called cancellous bone. And this is more to have more lightweight because it's not necessary to have bone all the way through. You can have some space and also space in between these trabecules for bone marrow. And usually you have one artery that goes inside of the middle of the bone and supplies the inside and the inner part of the compact bone, while the arteries of the periosteum supply the outer parts of the compact bone. And here is another classification type by the shape of the bone. We can talk about long bones, which maybe are the stereotypical bone we think about, like the femur, like the big thigh bone, also the big humerus, big arm bone, or the bones of the lower arm and the lower leg. These are long tubular bones. We can also talk about short bones, like the carpals. You see these tiny little, almost when they're cube-shaped, and that's one type of bone. You can also have flat bone. That's like the skull, for example. You see the frontal bone. It's just a slice that contains one layer of compact bone and another layer of compact bone, and in between is one layer of spongy bone. So it's just a plate. And we have irregular bone, which are bones that have a different shape than the other ones that we have talked about, and that includes vertebra, because they look a bit distinct. And then you have sesamoid bones, These are bones that are inside of joints, and that help make the tendon travel longer and therefore the joint to work better. The most famous of these are the kneecap, or also called the patella. We also have one that is named in the arm, which is called the pisiform bone. Now, let's bring this all together. We talked about what are bones made of. We talked about where in the body they are. We've shown the skeleton. It's everywhere in the body. And what different types are there. We've talked about the different classification there is. And we talked about also the functions. And there are a couple of other small functions that I haven't mentioned that you can look up later in good books like Guyton and Hall. But here we can end with talking a bit about the long bone, bringing it all together. This is a femur in a cross section, and we have the diaphysis, which is the part in the middle. We have the metaphysis, which is this part here, and the epiphysis, which is the end of the bone. This is the same for all of our long bones. And in the diaphysis, it's like a tube with compact bone all around and space on the inside, which is often filled with fat. So we have yellow bone marrow, is what it's called, the fat inside of the diaphysis. And the red bone marrow is more inside of the epiphysis and metaphysis, in between the trabecules. Now, when you think red bone marrow, think red blood cells. This is where blood is made, especially on the proximal part of the femur. So this is the part that connects to the hip, and this goes down to the lower leg. And also you see here you have the epiphyseal line. This is also called the growth plate, and this is an adult, so you don't have the growth plate present. In an adult, it grows shut and it's just bone all the way. But in an adolescent, this would have a layer of cartilage that was constantly expanding and growing more bone on both sides, because cartilage can turn into bone under the right circumstance. That's one way which bone is made, is from cartilage. And yes, so again, the bone gets blood from an artery, like from the main, usually this one branch from the main artery that goes along the bone, that goes into the inside and supplies the bone marrow and the inside of the bone. And you have small arteries that go to the periosteum and supply the outside of the bone. And on both sides of the bone, you see there's cartilage for the articulation, for the joint, which are there to make the joint movement smoother. Here are a couple of sources. There's Gray's Anatomy that I have here, and also Guyton and Hall, which is a great book on physiology. And if there are any more questions about this, write in the comments below, and I'll see you guys next time.